Something happened in the unseen while you were trying to survive what no one else fully understood. Heaven grew still, not with the silence of abandonment or the emptiness of an unanswered prayer, but with the focused attention that comes when something extraordinary is being revealed. In that moment, heaven was watching you, not the version of you who appeared composed in front of others, not the person who smiled while carrying hidden pain, not the image you tried to maintain whenever people asked if you were all right. Heaven was looking at the real you, the one who had been pressed beyond what you believed you could endure, the one who faced nights that seemed endless, and the one who kept breathing when even the smallest act of continuing required courage. My beloved child, you have walked through seasons that were more than merely inconvenient or uncomfortable. You encountered circumstances that seemed determined to finish you completely. One hardship had barely ended before another arrived. You tried to recover, but before your heart could regain its balance, another disappointment demanded your strength. There were mornings when getting out of bed felt dishonest because you did not feel hopeful, courageous, or prepared for whatever the day might bring. Still, you moved forward without feeling ready. You carried responsibilities while your inner world was exhausted. You spoke reassuring words to others, while silently wondering how much longer you could hold yourself together. Yet you kept going. Perhaps you did not move gracefully. Perhaps, on some days, all you could manage was one reluctant step. Perhaps you stumbled, questioned, wept, withdrew, and wondered whether you would ever feel whole again. Still, you did not stop completely. That is what heaven saw. Your most remarkable moments were not necessarily the days when you felt confident or spiritually strong. They were the moments when you had nothing impressive to offer, yet still turned your heart toward me. Sometimes that turning was nothing more than a whisper. Sometimes it was my name spoken through tears. Sometimes it was a prayer without complete sentences, because exhaustion had taken away your ability to explain what hurt. There were times when you approached me without any certainty that I would answer, yet something within you continued to reach for me. You thought those moments were evidence of weakness, but heaven understood them differently. Faith is not demonstrated only through joyful praise when everything is working. Sometimes faith is revealed through the smallest movement of a wounded heart that refuses to close completely. You may have believed your trembling prayers were insignificant, but I heard every one of them. I saw every time you returned after disappointment made you want to withdraw. I saw you sitting in silence because words were no longer available, and I understood the prayer hidden within that silence. I was not measuring the strength of your voice. I was watching the direction of your heart. Even when your emotions could not find me, something deep within you remained turned toward me. You bent beneath the weight, and I watched you bend. I knew exactly how close you came to letting go. I saw the private moments when the pressure became almost unbearable, when you considered surrendering the hope that anything could ever change. But even then, there was a thread you continued to hold. At times, your grip was firm. At other times, it was barely there. Nevertheless, the thread remained. You may have called it survival instinct or stubbornness, but it was more than either of those things. I placed it within you. Long before this season arrived, I planted something in the deepest ground of your being, somewhere the storms could shake but never uproot. When everything around you became unstable, that hidden root held. You did not manufacture it through willpower, nor did you earn it through flawless behavior. It was my work within you, established before you understood how greatly you would need it. The pressure did not create that foundation. It exposed its existence. I am not telling you that the painful things were good. I am not calling loss a blessing simply because you survived it. Pain is not a prize. Betrayal is not a gift. Suffering should never be romanticized. What happened to you mattered. The wounds were real, the consequences were heavy, and the cost was greater than many people will ever know. I will not minimize what you endured or ask you to pretend that it did not hurt. I was present through every hour of it. I was there in the room where you sat alone, wondering why relief had not come. I was there during the nights when your thoughts would not settle, and the silence around you felt louder than any answer. I was there when morning arrived without restoring your strength, and when you fulfilled ordinary responsibilities while carrying extraordinary pain. I was not observing you from behind glass, untouched by your sorrow. I did not turn away when your faith became uncertain or when your questions grew sharper. Your confusion did not offend me, and your exhaustion did not disappoint me. I remained with you, even when you could no longer sense my presence. The absence of a feeling was never the absence of my hand. While you were asking why I seemed so quiet, I was working beneath the surface in ways you could not yet recognize. I was holding what had become too heavy for you to carry. I was guarding the places within you that the pressure was trying to destroy. I was keeping your inner foundation intact while everything visible appeared to be falling apart. You believed you were only enduring, but endurance was not the whole story. Something within you was being preserved. There were parts of your life you could not protect, outcomes you could not control, and losses you could not prevent. But the deepest truth of who you are remained beyond the reach of those circumstances. The storm touched your emotions, disrupted your plans, and changed the way you saw the future. But it did not possess the authority to remove what I had planted within you. That is why you are still here. Your presence in this moment is not proof that the journey was easy. It is proof that the pressure did not have the final word. You may still carry questions. You may still be healing from things you cannot explain. You may not yet understand why certain doors closed, why some people left, or why relief took so long to arrive. You do not need to solve every mystery before receiving this truth. You were never forgotten. You were never abandoned. The quiet was not emptiness, and the delay was not evidence that I had stopped seeing you. I witnessed the first moment the weight entered your life, every hidden battle that followed, and the final hour of each night you thought would never end. Nothing escaped my attention. Nothing you carried was invisible to me. Even the tears you wiped away before anyone noticed were seen. Even the prayers you could not finish were understood. Even the days you considered failures were held within my mercy. You judged yourself by how afraid, tired, or uncertain you felt. But I was looking deeper. I saw that fear did not completely silence your faith. I saw that exhaustion did not permanently close your heart. I saw that uncertainty did not prevent you from taking another step. What you called barely surviving, heaven recognized as evidence that the root remained alive. The season exposed your limitations, but it also revealed that my work within you was stronger than the conditions surrounding you. You were shaken, but the foundation held. You were wounded, but your deepest identity remained intact. You were pressed, but what I planted within you did not disappear. Let this truth reach the places where you still feel ashamed of how difficult the journey became. You did not fail because you struggled. You did not lose your faith because you had questions. You did not disappoint me because there were moments when all you could do was remain. Sometimes remaining is an act of profound faith. Sometimes the greatest victory is not moving quickly, but refusing to vanish beneath the weight. You remained, my child. Through every difficult season, every unanswered question, and every night of uncertainty, I remained with you as well. The storm revealed how fragile you felt, but it also uncovered something the storm could not take: the life I placed within you. That life is still present. The root is still holding. The story is still unfolding, and the hardship that tried to finish you has already failed to erase what I began. Now that you understand, I witnessed every hidden moment and remained with you beneath the weight of that season. I want to show you what the pressure revealed. What I found within you was not perfection, and I am not asking you to pretend you never became tired, discouraged, or uncertain. There were moments when your emotions overwhelmed you. You questioned what was happening, struggled to understand my silence, and sometimes responded from pain rather than peace. Yet beneath those human reactions, something deeper remained. When hardship stripped away the comfort, recognition, and certainty on which so many people depend, It uncovered qualities within you that could never be produced through appearance or performance. Those qualities were already present, but they could not be fully recognized until they were tested. Gold does not prove its purity while resting untouched. Its true nature becomes evident when it passes through intense heat. In the same way, the most difficult season of your life revealed what had been quietly forming within you. The first thing I found was loyalty. It was not the easy loyalty that survives only, while relationships feel secure and circumstances remain favorable. It was the kind of loyalty that endured even after disappointment gave you reasonable grounds to leave. People you trusted did not always protect what you placed in their hands. Some misunderstood your heart, questioned your intentions, or disappeared when you needed them most. Their actions wounded you, and I will not deny the reality of that pain. Nevertheless, you resisted the temptation to become completely faithless simply because others had failed you. You learned to release what you could not repair without allowing disappointment to destroy your ability to remain sincere. Even when you stepped away from situations that were no longer safe, you did not abandon the values I had planted within you. You discovered that loyalty does not always mean remaining physically present where you are continually harmed. Sometimes loyalty means staying faithful to truth, love, and integrity while finding the courage to establish necessary boundaries. I saw you make those difficult choices without needing an audience to approve them. I also found faith within you, although it did not always resemble the confident faith people display when their prayers are answered quickly. Yours was often quiet, weary, and stripped of emotional certainty. There were days when you could not feel my nearness, yet you refused to close the door completely. You continued speaking my name even when the silence seemed to return your words unanswered. You kept a small space open for hope when disappointment urged you to fill that space with resignation. That kind of faith carries tremendous weight because it does not depend on immediate evidence. It does not offer praise merely because the outcome is favorable. It remains through confusion and continues to trust even when trust becomes costly. You may have believed your faith was weak because it did not always feel joyful, but faith is not measured by volume. A whispered prayer offered from a dark room can carry more truth than a confident declaration made when nothing is at risk. Every time you reached toward me without knowing what would happen next, you demonstrated a faith that had moved beyond convenience. Alongside that faith, I found patience. You did not experience patience as peaceful waiting without struggle. You felt the frustration of watching time pass, while the answer remained beyond your reach. You watched others move forward and wondered why your own progress seemed invisible. You asked questions that did not receive immediate explanations, and you lived with circumstances you would have changed instantly if the power had been yours. Still, you continued. Patience did not mean you enjoyed the delay. It meant the delay did not persuade you to abandon everything you believed. Your patience grew each time you chose not to force an outcome that was not ready. It became stronger whenever you allowed uncertainty to exist without making a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion. This patience became part of your character, not because waiting was easy, but because you practiced remaining steady when impatience offered choices that were faster but far more damaging. I also watched your integrity. There were private moments when compromise would have been easier, and perhaps no one else would have known. You could have responded to dishonesty with more dishonesty, used someone else's weakness for your own advantage, or justified harmful choices by pointing to what had been done to you. Yet something within you resisted. You did not make every decision perfectly, but you continued returning to what was right. When you recognized that your words or actions had fallen short, you accepted correction instead of surrounding them with excuses. You chose honesty when a lie might have protected your image. You accepted responsibility when it would have been easier to distribute the blame. You tried to keep your heart clean even when no one was watching closely enough to reward you. This is where integrity becomes real, not in public moments shaped by reputation, but in private decisions where the only witnesses are you and me. I saw those decisions, including the ones that seemed too small to matter. Nothing done with a sincere heart is insignificant in heaven. Another rare quality remained alive within you: kindness. After being treated without gentleness, you still found ways to remain gentle. Pain tried to convince you that softness was dangerous and that becoming hard was the only way to protect yourself. You had every reason to guard your heart, and wisdom required you to become more discerning. But discernment did not erase your tenderness. You learned that kindness does not require you to permit mistreatment, just as forgiveness does not require you to return to every place that wounded you. True kindness can speak clearly, maintain boundaries, and reject wrongdoing without becoming cruel. I watched you discover that balance. You became more careful, but you did not become cold. You became wiser, but you did not allow wisdom to turn into suspicion toward everyone you encountered. Even when your own strength was fading, you noticed when someone else was hurting. You offered encouragement while carrying burdens you rarely discussed. You made room for another person's feelings while your own heart was still healing. You showed up in quiet ways that others may have forgotten, but I did not forget. Your compassion survived your personal pain, and that is one of the clearest signs of what was formed within you. Many people respond to suffering by closing every door to vulnerability. They decide never to care deeply again because caring once cost them too much. You understood that temptation. There were times when withdrawing from everyone seemed safer than risking another wound. Yet your ability to feel with others did not disappear. You could recognize loneliness because you had experienced it. You could sense discouragement because you had carried it. You could sit beside grief without offering shallow answers because you understood that some pain needs presence more than explanation. Your compassion was no longer theoretical. It had gained weight through experience. You did not observe struggling people from a safe distance and tell them how they should feel. You became slower to judge and more willing to listen. The hardship that could have made you unreachable instead made you more aware of what others might be carrying behind their smiles. These qualities, loyalty, enduring faith, patience, integrity, kindness, and compassion, came together to produce something that cannot be learned through comfort alone. They produced depth. Depth does not announce itself or demand recognition. It is rarely the loudest presence in the room. It does not need to impress people because it has been formed beyond the reach of applause. Depth reveals itself in the way a person responds when life becomes complicated, when no simple answer exists, and when another human being needs more than a rehearsed phrase. It is evident in the ability to remain gentle without becoming weak, truthful without becoming harsh, and hopeful without denying reality. You developed this depth while believing you were merely trying to survive another day. Every difficult choice added another layer within you. Every time you remained honest while hurting, another part of your foundation grew stronger. Every time you offered compassion without ignoring your own need for healing, your heart expanded. Every time you waited without forcing what was not ready, steadiness took root. You may not have recognized any of this while it was happening because genuine formation is often invisible while it takes place. You saw fatigue. I saw endurance becoming mature. You saw unanswered questions. I saw faith learning to stand without constant reassurance. You saw the ways you fell short. I saw your willingness to return, learn, and continue. Do not mistake humility for a refusal to acknowledge what has grown within you. You do not honor me by denying the work I have done in your heart. You do not need to declare yourself better than anyone else because rarity is not superiority. It does not elevate you above other people. It prepares you to stand beside them with greater understanding. What makes these qualities rare is not that you never struggled, but that the struggle did not remove them. Your loyalty was tested, yet it remained. Your faith became weary, yet it continued reaching. Your patience was strained, yet it deepened. Your integrity was challenged, yet it continued calling you back to the truth. Your kindness was wounded, yet it survived. Your compassion carried pain, yet it remained open. That is what heaven recognized within you. The pressure stripped away appearances and uncovered substance. It revealed a heart that could be shaken without becoming empty, wounded without becoming cruel, and exhausted without permanently surrendering what mattered most. My child, receive this without pride and without resistance. Something meaningful has been formed within you. It was shaped through costly seasons, strengthened through private decisions, and confirmed whenever the easier path stood before you but did not become your permanent choice. You emerged from the pressure carrying a depth that cannot be imitated, a character that does not depend on attention, and a quiet faith that has already proven it can remain when remaining costs something. I need you to understand why the pressure against you often felt so personal, persistent, and precisely aimed at the places where you were most vulnerable. What happened was not simply a series of unfortunate events, nor was every hardship evidence that you had done something to deserve it. There were attacks against your confidence, your faith, and your willingness to believe that your life still had purpose. The enemy could not remove what I had placed within you, but he could try to convince you to stop recognizing it. He could not erase your calling, but he could attempt to make you distrust it, neglect it, or voluntarily walk away from it. If he could persuade you that you were ordinary, permanently damaged, too late, or too broken to matter, then what I planted within you might remain unused, not destroyed, but buried beneath doubt. That was the objective. The opposition rarely announced itself openly. It often entered through thoughts that sounded reasonable because they were connected to real disappointments. You are behind. Everyone else is moving forward. You have lost too much time. Your mistakes have disqualified you. No one who truly knows you will remain. Nothing will ever change. Those thoughts repeated themselves until they began to feel less like accusations and more like conclusions. The enemy wanted repetition to give lies the appearance of truth. He knew that if you heard the same message often enough, especially in moments of exhaustion, you might eventually accept it without examining its source. Comparison became one of his most effective tools. He continually placed other people's visible progress before you while keeping their hidden struggles beyond your view. You saw their achievements, opportunities, relationships, and confidence, then compared those outward results with your private uncertainty. It was an unfair measurement from the beginning, but pain made the distortion difficult to recognize. Comparison persuaded you to judge your journey by a path that was never designed for you. It made ordinary delays feel like permanent failure and turned another person's success into supposed evidence of your inadequacy. Instead of appreciating what was unfolding in someone else's life, you began using it as a weapon against your own heart. The enemy did not need to take anything away from you when he could make you despise what you already possessed. He only needed to keep your attention fixed on what appeared to be missing. Shame was another point of entry. It took real mistakes, regrets, and unfinished areas of your life and tried to transform them into a permanent identity. You must learn the difference between conviction and shame because they do not speak with the same purpose. Conviction points to a specific choice, reveals what needs to be corrected, and invites you to return to the truth. It may feel uncomfortable, but it leaves the door open to restoration. Shame does something entirely different. It does not simply tell you that you made a wrong decision. It tells you that something is fundamentally wrong with you. It does not invite growth. It urges you to disappear. It tells you to hide from me, withdraw from others, and assume that your presence is a burden. It uses the past not to teach you, but to imprison you. There were moments when you mistook this accusing voice for honesty. You believed that condemning yourself was a sign of humility, but true humility does not require self-hatred. The enemy wanted you to become so preoccupied with punishing yourself that you would never rise and become useful again. Rejection also became part of the attack. When people failed to recognize your value, Their limited perception was presented to you as an authoritative verdict. Their absence seemed to confirm that you were unworthy of love. Their criticism appeared to prove that you lacked what was necessary. Their decision not to choose you made you question whether I had chosen you at all. The wound became especially deep when rejection came from people who should have been safe. The enemy understood that betrayal by a stranger might hurt, but betrayal by someone you trusted could reshape the way you viewed every relationship afterward. He wanted one person's failure to become the lens through which you interpreted everyone else. He wanted you to expect abandonment before connection had an opportunity to grow, and to retreat before anyone could choose to stay. Discouragement worked quietly alongside comparison, shame, and rejection. It did not always tell you to abandon everything at once. Instead, it suggested that you postpone one faithful step, then another. It persuaded you that there was no reason to pray today because yesterday's prayer seemed to go unanswered. It encouraged you to stop trying because your previous efforts had not produced the outcome you wanted. It whispered that surrender would feel like relief. This is how a calling becomes dormant, not always through one dramatic act of rebellion, but through a gradual agreement with hopelessness. The enemy wanted you to become passive toward your own life. He wanted you to interpret exhaustion as finality and delay, as proof that nothing meaningful remained ahead. There were times when these strategies affected you. You believed some of the lies, repeated some of the accusations, and viewed yourself primarily through the damage you had suffered. I will not pretend that you remained untouched. You came close to accepting your worst season as the permanent definition of your future. Yet every time you approached that conclusion, something within you resisted. Sometimes that resistance was strong, but often it was no more than a flicker, the quiet thought that perhaps the story was not over, the reluctant decision to pray once more, or the small willingness to try again after disappointment. That resistance mattered. It was evidence that the attack had reached your emotions but had not gained authority over your deepest foundation. The enemy could influence what happened around you and intensify what you felt, but he could not rewrite what I had established at your core. He could bend your thoughts toward a lie, but he could not force your heart to give it permanent allegiance. Every time you returned, his strategy failed. When you prayed after deciding you had no words left, he failed. When you chose honesty after shame told you to hide, he failed. When you allowed hope to rise after rejection told you that you would always be alone, he failed. When comparison made you feel insignificant and you still took the next step, he failed. These victories did not always arrive with dramatic emotion or visible celebration. Most of them were quiet decisions made while you were exhausted. Nevertheless, heaven recognized everyone. You may have believed that returning reluctantly did not count, but a weary return is still a return. You may have thought that faith mixed with questions was inadequate, but those questions did not prevent you from reaching again. The persistence of the attack revealed that something meaningful was at stake, but your persistence revealed something greater. The foundation remained beyond the enemy's reach. The lies pressed hard, yet they established no permanent truth within you. You are still here, still listening, still capable of responding, and still carrying what the opposition tried to bury. The attack did not accomplish its ultimate purpose because it could not make you remain completely gone. Each return preserved your movement. Each small act of faith kept your calling from falling silent. The enemy wanted your pain to become your surrender, but even through the struggle, you continued returning to me. Quietly, repeatedly, and faithfully, you outlasted the lie. My beloved child, there is something I must explain about the silence you experienced, because I know how deeply it affected you. There were moments when you asked me to speak clearly, confirm what I was doing, and show you where the road was leading, yet no answer seemed to come. You wondered whether I had overlooked you, whether your prayers had reached me, or whether you had somehow failed to believe strongly enough. From where you stood, the silence felt like distance. The delay looked like inactivity, especially when others appeared to be receiving opportunities, answers, and direction while you remained in the same uncertain place. But my silence was never neglect, and the waiting was never punishment. I was not withholding my goodness because you had failed to perform well enough. I was working with precision, preparing you to receive something that would have harmed you rather than helped you if it had arrived before your character was ready to carry it. Revelation carries weight. A truth may be good, but if it enters a heart before that heart has developed the strength and humility to hold it, the truth can become distorted. If I had revealed the full significance of what I placed within you too soon, you might have tried to perform an identity rather than quietly becoming the person capable of carrying it. You might have treated the revelation as a position to defend, a title to display, or proof that you were more important than those around you. What I intended to anchor you might have fed your pride. You could have begun depending on recognition, measuring your obedience by applause, and pursuing visible confirmation instead of remaining close to me. I did not want your calling to become a trophy held above others. I wanted it to become a gift carried beside them. What I prepared for you was never intended to elevate you above people. It was meant to deepen your ability to serve them. Before I could place greater responsibility in your hands, I needed to ensure that your heart would value my direction more than human attention. Pride was not the only danger of receiving revelation too soon. Fear could also have caused you to retreat. Sometimes people see the magnitude of what lies ahead before they have developed the inner stability to accept it, and that knowledge overwhelms them. Instead of growing into the calling, they run from it. They focus on everything they lack, convince themselves that they could never become the person I have named, and withdraw before the journey even begins. If I had shown you the entire road while you were still learning to trust me for the next step, the distance might have terrified you. If I had revealed every responsibility before your strength had matured, you might have mistaken preparation for disqualification. My silence protected you from carrying tomorrow's weight with yesterday's capacity. I did not conceal the future to frustrate you. I revealed only what you could faithfully hold at each stage. During the seasons when you believed nothing was happening, I watched the quiet work unfolding beneath the surface. I watched to see whether hardship would make you humble or brittle, whether delay would deepen your trust or fill your heart with resentment, and whether disappointment would drive you toward me or make you dependent on the approval of others. This was not a test designed to make you fail. It was formation designed to make you steady. Your humility gradually became genuine rather than performative. You stopped feeling the need to appear strong at every moment and learned that honest dependence was not weakness. Your patience developed roots. You became less willing to force outcomes merely to escape uncertainty. Your discernment sharpened as you learned to distinguish between the voices demanding immediate action and the quieter direction inviting faithful obedience. Most importantly, your need for me began to outweigh your desire to be noticed. That change mattered more than you understood. A person who needs attention more than my presence will bend the truth to preserve recognition. But a person who values my presence above recognition can remain faithful even when no one applauds. I was forming that steadiness within you. You felt delayed, but you were being strengthened. Delay is not the same as denial. A carefully formed vessel takes longer to prepare than something created merely for display. Roots cannot be rushed because they grow where no one can see them. If a tree produces visible branches before its roots are deep enough, the first severe storm can bring it down. I was not interested in giving you quick fruit without a foundation capable of sustaining it. I allowed the hidden work to continue because what I intended to build through your life required permanence. You could not bypass the invisible process and still possess the depth needed for what would eventually become visible. The quiet season also protected what was developing. Some things, when exposed too soon, are damaged by attention before they become strong enough to withstand it. A flame lit before it has sufficient fuel can be extinguished by the slightest wind. I was guarding what I had placed within you until it could endure misunderstanding, responsibility, and pressure. What appeared to be withholding was care. What seemed like an empty season was a protected environment in which your character could grow without the burden of premature expectations. You did not waste that time. Even on the days when you believed you were merely surviving, something lasting was being established. When there were no outward signs of progress, your inward stability was increasing. When you had nothing visible to show for the waiting, patience, wisdom, and spiritual endurance were becoming part of you. I also want you to understand that your worth was never the variable in this process. I was not waiting for you to become valuable because your value had been settled long before you entered this season. The delay was not a verdict on whether you deserved something good. It was a decision concerning readiness, timing, and protection. You did not have to earn my attention, and you were never required to prove yourself worthy of my purpose. I was preparing your hands to hold what my heart had already chosen to give. The person you are now is not the same person who first stepped onto this road. You have learned lessons that explanation alone could never teach you. Your humility is deeper, your patience is steadier, and your discernment is more mature. You know the difference between being recognized and being prepared. You understand that rapid movement is not always progress, and that hidden growth is never wasted time. You have learned to remain near me without demanding constant evidence that I am working. That is why I am speaking now, not earlier, when the truth might have produced pride or fear, and not later, when continued silence would no longer serve the process. The timing was never cruelty. It was care. The quiet was never abandonment. It was construction. I was forming the vessel so that what I poured into it would remain, and I was strengthening the foundation so that whatever rested upon it would endure. The preparation has fulfilled its purpose. Your character can now carry what your calling requires, and your hands are ready to receive what I have been carefully preparing them to hold. My beloved child, now I want to speak directly to the place where doubt has been living, and say something clearly enough that the old story can no longer hide beneath uncertainty. You are not who the hardest things tried to convince you that you were. Hardship came with the intention of defining you. It tried to reduce your identity to the size of your most painful experiences, persuade you that failure was your name, and make rejection feel like a permanent verdict over your life. Every disappointment attempted to leave a mark deeper than the event itself. It wanted you to carry the past into every new beginning and expect the same painful ending before anything had a chance to unfold. But that effort did not succeed. What happened to you became part of your experience, but it never gained the authority to determine your identity. Your failures taught you, but they did not name you. Rejection wounded you, but it did not establish your worth. Seasons of invisibility affected your emotions, but they did not erase what I placed within you. I did not build your identity on circumstances because circumstances change. I did not base it on performance because human strength rises and falls. I did not entrust it to the opinions of others because people often see only a small portion of the truth. I established who you are at a depth that the surface of life cannot reach. That is why repeated attempts to rewrite your identity never became permanent. They affected how you felt and sometimes distorted the way you saw yourself, but they could not alter what I had spoken at your core. You have spent too much time measuring yourself by evidence that was never qualified to define you. You looked at closed doors and concluded that you lacked value. You looked at delays and assumed you had fallen behind. You watched others move forward and interpreted their progress as proof that you had missed your opportunity. Yet you were comparing paths that were never designed to be identical. Another person's pace cannot reveal whether you are moving according to my purpose. Their visible results cannot determine the value of your hidden progress. Their season is not your standard, and their calendar is not the clock governing your life. Every journey has its own shape, timing, responsibilities, and preparation. When you compare your private process with another person's public outcome, You place two entirely different stories beside each other and demand that they look the same. That measurement will always produce confusion. You are not behind your purpose. You have been traveling a road designed with your particular formation in mind. Some parts moved slowly because depth was required. Some doors remained closed because entering them too soon would have interrupted what needed to be completed within you. Your path was not an afterthought or an inferior version of someone else's life. It was intentionally shaped for you. Stop interpreting difference as deficiency. A path can be quieter without being less meaningful, slower without being wrong, and hidden without being forgotten. Comparison has cost you more than you realize because it has repeatedly drawn your attention away from what I am doing within you. It has caused you to overlook growth simply because it did not resemble another person's achievements. It has made you impatient with the very process that was strengthening you. Comparison even persuaded you to apologize for taking up space. You developed the habit of making yourself smaller before anyone else had an opportunity to reject you. You lowered your expectations, diminished your gifts, and softened your voice so that disappointment might hurt less if it came. You believed that if you reduced yourself first, the opinions of others would have less power over you. But making yourself small in advance did not protect you. It trained you to cooperate with the very judgment you feared. It prevented you from standing with the quiet certainty that rightfully belongs to someone whose worth has already been settled. What I placed within you is not so fragile that it must be hidden from every possibility of criticism. It can withstand being seen. You do not need to announce yourself loudly, demand recognition, or prove that you are greater than anyone else. You simply need to stop agreeing that you are less than who I created you to be. Humility is not the denial of value. True humility recognizes that every gift comes from me and carries it without pride, apology, or performance. I also need you to become more careful with the words you use to describe yourself. Long seasons of pressure taught you to speak the language of disappointment. You began saying, "I am too far behind. I am always the one who gets left behind. I am not strong enough. Nothing ever works for me. I have never been good at trusting. I am too damaged to begin again." Those statements felt honest because they described emotions connected to real experiences. But feelings are not definitions, and experiences are not identities. You are not required to narrate the rest of your life using words learned during its most painful chapters. The language of the wound may explain what you felt, but it does not possess the authority to declare who you are. Stop repeating temporary conclusions as permanent truths. This does not mean denying your emotions or replacing them with exaggerated declarations you do not believe. I am not asking you to pretend that fear, grief, or insecurity never appears. I am asking you to correct the lie whenever it attempts to become your name. When the old language returns, interrupt it quietly. That is what I experienced, but it is not who I am. That is what fear is saying, but it is not the final truth. I may feel uncertain, but I am still being led. I may have been rejected, but I am not without worth. My progress may look different, but I am not behind. Let the correction be simple, honest, and steady. You do not need emotional intensity to make truth effective. Repeated agreement with truth will gradually replace the patterns created by repeated agreement with pain. Speak to yourself with the same mercy you would offer someone else who had survived what you endured. You would not look at a wounded person and call them worthless because they needed time to heal. You would not tell someone exhausted from a long journey that their weariness erased every mile they had traveled. Extend that same understanding to yourself. You struggled, but the struggle did not make you weak. You questioned, but your questions did not remove your faith. You experienced delay, but the delay did not mean you were forgotten. You were wounded, but the wound did not reach the foundation I secured within you. You are faithful because you continued returning. You are resilient because pressure did not make your surrender permanent. You possess depth because you allowed difficult seasons to teach you without permitting them to harden your heart completely. These are not empty compliments. They are accurate descriptions of what has already been demonstrated. Let them replace the accusations you have carried for far too long. You are allowed to know who you are without becoming proud. You are allowed to occupy the space I have given you without apologizing. You are allowed to approach new beginnings without treating past rejection as a prophecy. The hardest seasons spoke loudly, but they never spoke with my authority. Their words described the attack. They did not describe the truth. My voice remains deeper than every label suffering tried to place upon you, and what I have said about you has never changed. The hidden season has fulfilled its purpose, and what was formed within you was never meant to remain concealed forever. I do not develop depth in darkness only to leave it unused. I do not cultivate compassion, discernment, patience, and quiet authority merely for you to recognize those qualities privately. What I established within you was prepared for expression, service, and meaningful action. A transition is beginning, but I want you to understand it correctly so that you do not pursue the wrong kind of visibility. I am not promising fame, public attention, or the admiration of crowds. Visibility within my purpose is not measured by how many people know your name. It means being placed where what you carry can meet a genuine need. It means entering circumstances in which the qualities formed through your suffering become useful to someone who cannot be helped by shallow words. Situations will arise that require the steadiness you developed when everything around you felt uncertain. People will need the compassion that survived your own pain. Decisions will call for the discernment you gained when appearances could no longer be trusted. The hidden work will become visible through its fruit, not through performance. You will understand why certain lessons had to become part of your character when life begins asking you to draw from them. People will cross your path carrying burdens that resemble those you once carried alone. Some will be standing in the same darkness you thought would never end. They may not need a perfect answer or an impressive speech. They will need the presence of someone who understands what it means to keep breathing when hope feels distant. Because you walked through pain honestly, without pretending that faith erased every difficult emotion, you will have something genuine to offer. Your words will carry weight because they were tested before they were spoken. You will not address suffering as someone who studied it from a safe distance. You will speak as someone who traveled the road and discovered that the road has an end. There is a difference between knowing the map and knowing the terrain. People can sense that difference. They recognize when encouragement comes from lived compassion rather than rehearsed language. Your former struggles do not disqualify you from helping others. In many cases, they are precisely why others will trust you. The places where you once felt weak taught you how to approach weakness without judgment. The seasons when you felt invisible taught you how to notice those whom others overlook. The moments when you had no easy answers taught you how to remain present without trying to explain away another person's pain. This is the credibility hardship produced, not the authority of someone who claims to have mastered life, but the quiet influence of someone who has suffered, learned, healed, and remained tender. The world often values what appears polished, effortless, and impressive. I place weight on what has been proven. I use what others dismiss because they judge only what is visible. The person who remained faithful in hidden places can be trusted when greater responsibility arrives, because that person has already learned to continue without applause. You learned to obey when no one celebrated you, to pray when no immediate answer appeared, and to care when your efforts went unrecognized. Those private choices prepared you to serve without making recognition your reward. As new opportunities emerge, the old temptation to compare yourself may return. You may look at people who appear more experienced, confident, or established and wonder whether your history makes you less qualified. Do not cooperate with that voice. You are not being sent forward because your journey looks cleaner than everyone else's. You are being sent forward because you allowed the journey to deepen you. You do not need another person's story to validate your own. Enter each new place with the settled understanding that you belong wherever I direct you. Do not announce your worth or continually defend your presence. Quiet confidence does not compete for space. It peacefully occupies its appointed place. You are not required to perform strength. The strength formed within you will reveal itself through consistency, wisdom, and the way you respond when pressure returns. What was forged through difficulty will endure because it has already survived the conditions that might have destroyed something artificial. Move forward without striving to impress anyone. Let your life speak through substance. Listen carefully. Respond honestly. Serve generously. But do not abandon the boundaries and discernment you learned along the way. Compassion does not require you to return to harmful patterns, and purpose does not demand that you make yourself endlessly available. Offer what I have given you from a grounded heart, not from the old need to earn love or prove your usefulness. You are not entering this new season to secure your value. You are entering because your value is already settled, and your preparation is ready to become service. There may be moments when the scale of what is changing feels unfamiliar. New responsibility can be intimidating, especially after a long period of feeling overlooked. Do not shrink simply because the opportunity is larger than your previous environment. You were shaped for what is coming. The stretching was intentional, and the lessons were specific. Each season developed a capacity that the next one will require. When you are asked to remain calm, remember the nights that taught you steadiness. When you are called to encourage someone, remember how deeply you once needed sincere encouragement. When you must choose truth over approval, remember the freedom you discovered when my voice became more important than recognition. Nothing you learned during the hidden season needs to be left behind. Carry it forward as wisdom rather than baggage. You do not need to enter the future burdened by the pain itself, but you can bring the understanding that pain produced. What once felt like evidence that your life had been interrupted will become proof that no season was wasted. Your scars are not instructions to remain wounded. They are reminders that healing is possible. They allow you to speak of hope without denying how difficult the journey can be. Go forward with humility, knowing that you did not survive alone. Go forward with steadiness, refusing to let temporary emotions dictate permanent decisions. Go forward with depth, offering people something more enduring than appearances. Go forward with confidence, not because the visible world has confirmed everything, but because you know who formed you and why the process was necessary. Do not compete with anyone, and do not imitate paths I did not assign to you. Your responsibility is not to move faster than others. It is to remain faithful to the direction before you. The quiet is ending, but my presence is not. I was with you while the roots grew in darkness, and I will remain with you as the fruit becomes visible. What I spoke over you does not expire when emotions fade or circumstances become demanding. It stands because I stand behind it. Carry what you have received with care. Let your words reflect truth, your actions reveal compassion, and your presence bring steadiness into places filled with confusion. The season ahead belongs to what was formed during the seasons behind you. You are ready not because you know every step, but because you have learned to walk with me when only the next step is visible. It is time, my beloved child. Move forward without striving, comparison, or fear. Move forward with the settled assurance of someone who passed through the fire and discovered that what I planted within them could not be consumed.